Hi, I'm Janet Glynn. Welcome back to Close to Home Southington store for the basic block of the month for the month of December of 2020. This month we're going to get a little harder, being the last month of the year, and we're going to do one last block, and this is an applique block, and it's a very traditional Dresden plate. So some simple tools to create our points, and we're going to sew them actually into 4 quadrants of 5 colors each. So I'll show you how to cut, and we'll start sewing our quadrants together. We'll make our circle. I will also show you how to finish the center circle and how to applique it onto the background. Okay, so lots to do today. So the tools you're going to be using are the Easy Dresden plate, and we're going to be using a 4-inch, right up to the 4-inch mark on our Dresden plate. You will also need the 12.5-inch creative grid ruler to trim your block down at the very end. So you'll notice that when we get our kit, our biggest white piece is our background piece, and it is oversized. So when all is said and done and everything's been appliqued to the background, then we're going to remove our stabilizer and we're going to trim it to 12.5. So having a 12.5-inch square is very, very helpful. The other things you're going to need is an open toe foot, and you'll notice there's nothing in front of the needle. This is completely open, so this you can get an open toe for any make and model machine. So if you don't have one of those, that's very important. You're going to need 1/3 of a yard of tearaway stabilizer. You can tell it's tearaway easily because it does rip, and we'll be using that for the applique and for our center circle. You're going to need adhesive temporary spray to adhere our tearaway to the back side of our background square. You'll need a friction pen to draw your circle template, and you will also need some form of pointer or creaser to pop out the corners of each of our blades. You can use the purple thing, you can use Alex Anderson's 4-in-1 tool, you can use a point turner, anything that's not too sharp at the end. And of course you'll need to best press your kit before you go cut, because there's a lot of angles on those blades. And the last thing is some coordinating color to applique the Dresden to the background. So you can use blue, you can use green, you can use white, you can use the orange, whatever works for you. So do not cut your large background square, and do not cut your smaller white center circle square yet. So the only thing we're going to cut right now are the blades for the Dresden. So you're given 5 colors. You're going to cut your strip into 4-inch strip. It doesn't matter how long it is. I've cut a little bit off of this, but that's fine. Just a 4-inch wide strip. When you go to use your Dresden ruler, you want to make sure that, I should grab an easier one to see. You should make sure that the bottom of the ruler rides along the bottom of your strip, and the 4-inch marking is at the top. Okay, so we're going to cut our angles, and this is going to yield 1 piece of all 5 colors. I have all 5 colors stacked on top of each other, just like this. So we'll clean up the edge. It's hard to see with the blue, sorry. So we're just going to clean up one edge, and then we're going to turn it. I think it's easier if I turned it and cut with my right hand. So the 4 is at the top. The end of my Dresden is right at the bottom. Hold on to it because it does not have any grips on it, and we're just going to cut a wedge. Next thing you want to do is take your ruler, turn it 180 degrees, and cut your next wedge. Now remember, we're going to need 4 of these, 1 for each quadrant. And they don't have to be too perfect. and then the last one. All right. Once you get all your pieces trimmed down to this size, what you're going to do to complete the little points, so notice I finished this wedge, and what we're going to do is create this little folded point at the top of each one of our blades. So at this point we should have 20 blades. We're going to take our Dresden piece that we've just cut, and we're going to fold it in half, right sides together, the widest part of our little Dresden piece. So the widest part is going to be folded right side together, and I'm going to give that a little bit of a finger press, and I'm sewing the top of this at 1/4 inch seam allowance with a very, very short stitch. So come on over, I'll do a couple. And I like to start at the open side so that if it does shift, it will move the fabric to the fold, which is what I want. All right, so we're going to start 1/4 inch right at the top, and again turn my stitch length down. I turn it down to about a 1.5. I do want it very, very short. Okay. We're just going to chain these pieces. All right, let me get this out of your way. And we're going to take the next one, and we're going to fold it and finger press it and pop it through. Okay, so we'll take these. Hold on, let me re-thread real quick. All right, well, here we have a little issue. Hold on. All right, so we're going to sew each of those tops, fold it over, and when we get these done, we're going to have a big long train of 20 of these back to back. Okay, like chain pieced all together. The next step you want to take is to trim away, because we're going to turn these right side out, and I don't want the bulk near the folded edge. So what we're going to do, here is my threads right in here. So I want to try to trim away maybe 1/8 of an inch or a 1/16 of an inch away, kind of take away that little excess. Each of these is then going to get folded right side out, and we're going to take our point creaser, point trimmer, or point see, we're going to find, remember I finger pressed that? So right in here I can see that I have a pressed mark that I finger pressed, and I'm going to line up my seam with that finger mark, with that finger press, and I'm going to press each of them nice and flat. Okay, so we're going to do 20 of those. Oops, sorry, that was fast. They go pretty fast. Now that I have all of these lined up, we're going to go ahead and start making our quadrants. So the next thing you want to do is stack them up in the order in which you want them to be sewn. And on mine, I think I did it doesn't really matter what order you do, just stick in the same order. I did a dark blue, lightest green with the orange in the center, with a lighter blue, and then a darker green. So what we're going to do is we're going to just take our pairs, and we're going to sew the green and the blue, and then the orange and the blue, and then we're going to have this one last. When you sew it together, I want to put this these 5 pieces together for you. There's a little trick up at the beginning so that this is completely hidden of any extra threads, and it's nice and secure, so that when we do finish with our blanket stitch, applique stitch around the ends, we won't have any trouble pivoting and things like that. So I've already sewn these pairs together. I'm going to show you how to sew the next ones together. So I need these 2 sewn. So I'll put them right sides together. I'm going to line them up with the folded pieces at the top and the edge together down here. Try not to get any of this in the way, but we're just going to kind of hold those together. And we're going to sew 1/4 inch. You can go ahead and change your stitch length back to 2.0 or whatever is comfortable for you to sew. But what's going to happen is we're going to start our sewing about 1/4 inch down. So pretty much where this raw edge hits the backing. And we're going to start here, and we're actually going to sew backwards, take 1 stitch off of our Dresden blades, and then we're going to stitch all the way down again. The reason we do that is to keep our threads from just hanging out in these little V areas, and it does, again, gives it a little bit of support. So come on over, Heidi, and we'll start our sewing. Again, we want to start with our needle approximately 1/4 inch down from our sewn spot. Okay, so we'll put that here. And the first thing we want to do is hit our reverse and start stitching backwards. And as soon as my needle goes off of the fabric, now I can come forward. And I'm just going to come all the way down. Put my pieces right on top of each other. And stitch through. Okay, so as you can see, I'll trim this one down here. As you can see, these threads are hanging down a little bit lower than just the beginning of our pieces. So we're going to trim that, and we're also going to trim this one. So how nice that this is not showing any threads, and it has a really nice connection up here. Okay, so every time you sew 2 blades together, that's what you're going to do. So I have 1 more to finish this quadrant. I did my pairs, and then I have this one who's left at the end, and we'll do it 1 more time. We're going to start down, and we're going to start in reverse. So a couple stitches backwards until the needle goes off the edge. Line them up and continue straight down. Try not to pull. This is on the bias, so we just want to make sure we're not pulling or stretching anything. All right, so we're going to make 4 quadrants and trim these right up here in the back, which I've already done. And we're going to sew the quadrants together. Okay, don't press anything until the very end, and we're going to get to that in a second. So I've got these 4, and I've already put these together. All right, so it's simply, now we're going to sew that to that. We're going to sew this one to this one, and we're going to sew this one to this one to form a circle. All right, so come on over here, Heidi. So what we've done, we've sewn our all our Dresdens together into 4 sets of 5. So when we press, let me turn this over, we want to make sure that we press all of our Dresdens going in the same direction. So when I do that, I'll put the iron down on a Dresden and gently just open this up as I turn, as I kind of spin my iron around. Press, press, and give it a little tiny gentle pull, and then we'll turn it. And we're just going to come around in a circle, kind of always pointing toward the center of our Dresden. All right, you want to hit it from the front, you go ahead and give that a nice press. And we've pressed our Dresden. The next thing we want to do is center our Dresden onto our large background piece. I have folded this into quadrants. I just pressed it in half and in half again so that I have my north, south, east, west. I can then take my quadrants and put them right on the fold lines. So this piece would go here. This piece would go here. Out here, and out here. Just keep playing with it until you can get those V's right into the folded identifiers. Okay, so once you have that set in the center, it's time to make your center. All right, so let's go on over real quick. So what you want to do is in your directions, you're going to have a circle, and this is your center circle. What I'd like you to do is take your piece of tearaway interfacing and just a small square and place it over your circle, and with your friction pen, just draw right on the line. Okay, then we're going to take that circle and we're going to place it right side onto our fabric. So tearaway to the right side. And what I've done, so say this was my circle, I've sewn all the way through that circle. So here's my interfacing on the top, and here is the wrong side of my fabric, just like what you're going to get. So I've drew my line, I sewed right on the line, and then what I've done is I've just trimmed away. You can use pinking shears, or you can use something very sharp to go around the corners. And that, again, that's about a 1/16 of an inch. All right, so this is what's going to happen. We want to have this finished. So I'm going to take my scissors and I'm only cutting through the interfacing, kind of like a little X marks the spot. Okay. Okay, so I've sewn around it, all the way around it, and now all I'm going to do is turn this right side out. Turn my circle right side out. And again, don't forget, it's already sewn, so I should have a nice finished edge around it. Okay. And again, we can take our point trimmer, just kind of work that circle around and around till you're happy with it. And again, you can take the other side of your point creaser and you can have a nice rounded edge. And this is a finished edge now, and the right side is on the outside. So we're going to take this over to our iron and we're just going to press that nice and flat. Okay. That is nice and flat, and if you'd like, you can go ahead and trim that away, all the interfacing with a pair of scissors. You can just trim that about a 1/2 inch, 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. And this is going to be our center. So we're going to find the middle of our circle, make sure it's even all the way around, and we're going to go ahead and pin all that. All right. Next thing you want to do is sew it to the background. So all these get pinned down into place. Okay, all the way around. We're going to go ahead and pin that. And then this is where the 505 comes in. So I pretty much keep it away from the edge because that's where I'm going to be doing my blanket stitches. But every once in a while I'll give it a little pin just to kind of hold it into place. Okay, once I get that all pinned, I'm ready for the 505. The next thing I'd like to do is spray the rest of my stabilizer with 505, and this is again a temporary adhesive. It's just to hold this in place, so give that a little bit of a spray. And we're going to place our backing right on our stabilizer. So what this does is it gives it a really substantial background for when the threads get appliqued from the back to the front. All right, so let's go applique. So the next thing you should do is change your color thread, and in this case I picked a nice blue. And I'll show you the blanket stitch real quick. And you can use any kind of applique stitch that you like. I prefer a blanket stitch. I think it looks really nice, and I'll get my sample down so you can see it. You can use a satin stitch, you can use a blind hem stitch, you could just go around with a straight stitch right on the edge just to hold it down. Now don't forget, not only are you going to hold down each of the blades, but you also have to do the center circle as well. Okay, so I'm going to change my foot, because if I tried to do a zigzag I would break a needle. All right, so I'll do it on the circle. So a blanket stitch looks much like I don't know if you can show them on the screen. It looks like a ladder. One side is straight and they have little fingers coming out the sides. So the straight line goes on the edge of your fold into the background piece, and the fingers come off into your fabric. So let's start. I'll try to go slow. So to the background and over and forward and over. Every time the needle hits on the right, it's hitting the background fabric. And every time it swings to the left, it's actually taking a little finger stitch. So as you can see, I'm holding the applique. So here I'll show you up close. I did the center circle with white, and I just basically did a very, very small stitch to hold it, and I did the outside piece with a blue all the way around, basically. So when you get that fully appliqued, what you want to do is then tear away the stabilizer from the back. You're gonna pull all that stabilizer that's just temporarily on there away from all your stitches. I think I left a little bit on here or there, but that's okay, it'll wash away. So tear away all the stabilizer, give it one final press, and then we're going to go back to our little north, south, east, and west points, and we're going to put our 12.5-inch ruler on it. And this is the last step to make it a 12-inch finished block. So the creative grids, that's really hard to see, have a white line which shows the center of the ruler. Do you see that little bullseye, that little white circle bullseye? That's going to be in the center, and these white lines are going to line up with my block. Okay, so it's going to go down just a tad. So there you go. So here's my white line going up through there, off to the east, down to the south, and over to the west. And I'm going to, and you can see my 1/4 inch seam is out here in my outside. So that's the last step, is to cut all the way around the 12.5-inch square. That's a Dresden. It's a lot for December, but I know you guys can do it. Just a couple follow-ups. Don't forget, this Saturday, the 19th, you can pick up your blocks, your kits, for the basic December 2020. Make sure you sign up for next year if you're ready. Please come to the intermediate sampler. I think you're going to love it. If you still want to sign up for beginner, that's perfectly fine. You can sign up for both. Don't forget to look for the holiday specials that were sent out in an email. Lots of things that are on sale up until Christmas. We also have My Favorite Color is Moda. In January, you'll get 11 yards of 10 different solids by Moda, and you make blocks anywhere from 9-inch to 36-inch. It's something separate that we're doing from Block of the Month, but I think you'll enjoy it. You're pretty much on your own. You get all the patterns, all the cutting directions, and you can just go off and do it. I want you to have a great holiday. Be safe, and we'll see you in 2021.